Getting real, folks. AI is everywhere, right? But have you ever thought about the dark side of all that?
The dark side, huh?
Yeah, like what if these AI systems that are supposed to make our lives easier, what if they could be like tricked or even turned against us?
Ah, I see where you're going with this. And actually, you're not far off.
That's what this deep dive is all about, right? AI security, or maybe we should say AI insecurity, and we've got the perfect roadmap with us today.
David M. Gilmore's Understanding Integrity-Based Cyber Attacks Against AI Systems. This March 2024 paper, let me tell you, it's a game changer in how we think about AI and its vulnerabilities.
So we're not talking about some far-off future with killer robots, right? This is about real threats happening right now.
Exactly. And the really scary part is, it's not about some super intelligence taking over. It's about something way more subtle, more insidious attacks on AI integrity.
Okay, so I get that cybersecurity is important, but break it down for me. What does integrity actually mean when we're talking about AI?
Imagine your data, it's Fort Knox secured, nobody's getting in. But what if somebody gets in and suddenly swaps out the blueprints? Gold's still there, but the defenses are worthless.
Taniki, okay, I'm starting to see the problem here.
That's AI integrity. It's about making sure the very core of how these systems think and act, the way they process information and make decisions, it's not compromised.
So not about stealing data, but making the AI itself go rogue. Now, that is a scary thought, but how? How do they actually do that?
One way is something called prompt injection. You know, those customer service chatbots, right?
Yeah, though sometimes I wonder if they're more trouble than they're worth.
Right. Well, imagine a hacker figures out exactly the right way to word a question, maybe even just a slight tweak to the phrasing.
Yeah.
And they could exploit a flaw in that chatbot's programming.
So tricking the AI into spilling the beans, not hacking into the system itself. Clever.
It's social engineering, but for machines, and it's more common than you might think. In fact, Gilmore gives this crazy example in the paper. There was this chatbot for like a made-up energy company, right? And somehow it had some sensitive data left in its system.
Oops.
Big oops. Contact info for the CEO, internal memos, the whole 9 yards. But it wasn't out in the open, right? But just by knowing the right questions to ask, Gilmore was able to extract all of it.
No way. Wait, so is that like legal? Can companies get in trouble for that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Gilmore actually brings up another real-life case involving Canada Airways. They got hit with an $800 fine because their chatbot gave a customer the wrong information.
$800. That's what, like one plane ticket?
Right. But think about the PR nightmare. The damage to their reputation? That's the real cost. And who knows how often this is happening under the radar, right?
Makes you wonder. Okay, so prompt injection, that's one way to mess with AI. What else?
Well, there are also evasion attacks. Imagine a hacker slipping past a security camera. They're not disabling it, just using its blind spots.
Yeah, like in the movies.
Exactly. It's the same idea with AI. They're targeting weaknesses in the algorithms themselves.
So basically, making the AI look the other way while something shady's going down. But how do you even find those weaknesses? That's some next-level hacking.
It can get pretty technical, but picture this. There's this cybersecurity company, Cyclance, right? They use AI to detect malware, cutting-edge stuff.
Sounds impressive.
It is. But these researchers, they figure out how to create something called a bypass string, basically. A bit of code that, when attached to a malicious file, could trick Cyclance's AI into thinking it was harmless.
Hold on, they gave malware an invisibility cloak?
Pretty much. It just shows how, even with something as advanced as AI, if you know how to exploit its weaknesses, you can turn the tables. And honestly, it gets even wilder. We're seeing the rise of AI-powered malware now, too.
Wait, so AI is being used to attack other AI? Is that what you're saying? Like some robot uprising situation?
Not exactly Terminator level just yet. It's not about robots becoming self-aware or anything like that.
Okay, good.
It's more like hackers are using AI as a tool to create this super adaptable malware. They call it polymorphic malware.
Polymorphic, like it can change its form or something.
Exactly. It can constantly shift its own code, so traditional antivirus software has a really hard time detecting it. CrowdStrike, big name in cybersecurity, they're saying it's a real nightmare scenario.
So it's like playing whack-a-mole with code that's constantly rearranging itself.
Pretty much.
So what do? Fight AI with AI.
That's definitely one of the strategies being explored, but we'll dive into that a little bit later. First, there's another type of attack we need to unpack. This one cuts right to the core of how AI learns. Model poisoning.
Model poisoning. Okay, that sounds kind of ominous. What is that?
So remember how we were talking about AI being only as good as the data it learns from?
Right, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. Model poisoning is like slipping something bad into its digital diet, you know,
Mhm.
messing with that training data to corrupt how the AI sees the world.
So instead of learning to be a helpful assistant, it becomes a malicious little troublemaker.
You got it. But it's not always intentional. Remember Microsoft's chatbot, Tay?
Oh, yeah, the one that went a little rogue on
Yeah,
Twitter.
that's the one. Classic case of unintentional model poisoning. People caught on that they could feed it all this toxic language, and boom, it started spitting it right back out.
Because it was learning, right?
Learning from the wrong crowd,
Yeah,
Microsoft had to shut it down pretty quickly.
can't say I blame them. But what about a real attack? How would that work?
Well, Gilmore actually gives another example. DPD, the delivery company.
Yeah, I know them.
So it turns out some disgruntled customer, they figure out how to inject a poem into their customer service chatbot.
They hacked it with poetry. What?
Not just any poem. This one was cleverly disguised to tell customers to ask for refunds because DPD was a waste of time.
Sneaky. And not exactly what you want your customer service chatbot telling people.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how subtle these attacks can be.
Okay, but this all sounds very, I don't know, high tech. What does it mean for the average person? I use a chatbot to order my groceries. Should I be worried?
It's a valid concern. Think about it. If hackers can manipulate AI for things like malware and data breaches, imagine what they could do with phishing attacks.
Phishing attacks, those emails that try to trick you into, like, clicking on a bad link.
Exactly. But AI is taking them to a whole new level. We're talking emails that sound like they're from your bank, your boss, even your grandma.
And because AI is so good at sounding human,
They can be incredibly convincing. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. What happens when AI is calling the shots in, say, medical diagnoses or financial decisions?
okay, now that is a scary thought. So, how do we fight back? If the bad guys are using AI, do we need to use AI to stop them?
That's the million-dollar question. And the answer might surprise you. We might have to fight fire with fire.
Wait, really?
We can use AI to monitor other AI systems, looking for anything out of the ordinary that could mean an attack. Remember we were talking about AI being great at spotting patterns? Well, we can train it to spot the patterns in data that could mean manipulation or poisoning.
So we teach AI to be like the cybersecurity guard dog.
Exactly. But it's not quite that simple. There are other things we can do too, like stricter regulations around AI development, and of course making sure we're building AI ethically.
So more responsible AI, using it as a shield, not just a weapon. Makes sense. But what about me? What can I, the average person, do to protect myself? Should I just throw away all my devices and hide in a bunker?
A Faraday cage wouldn't be a bad idea, but I get it. Not exactly practical.
Yeah, I kind of like my Netflix.
The most important thing is awareness. Know that these threats exist. Be cautious online. Double-check those emails. Watch out for suspicious links. And don't share sensitive info unless you're absolutely sure who you're dealing with.
Solid advice. Knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. And speaking of knowledge, there's one more thing from the paper I want to touch on. AI, at least for now, it doesn't have the best memory, not like us. And that's a real issue when it comes to security.
Oh, so?
Well, hackers are starting to realize they can launch these multi-stage attacks against AI. Feed it tiny bits of bad information over time, slowly nudging it in a certain direction without setting off any alarms.
So playing the long game, slowly breaking down its defenses.
Exactly. It's like building a house of cards, right? You wouldn't yank out a card from the bottom right away.
That wouldn't end well.
Exactly. But AI, it doesn't always see the bigger picture like that. So a hacker can remove those metaphorical cards one by one, weakening the AI until, boom, it all comes crashing down.
Wow. So not only do we have to worry about AI being tricked or poisoned, but we have to worry about it being manipulated over time, too. That is pretty unsettling. So we're talking about AI that can be manipulated without even knowing it's happening. That's a whole other level of creepy.
It is. And it highlights how much work we still have to do. We need AI that understands time, context, maybe even memory, like we were talking about.
So we need to make AI more like us, but like without the flaws that make us vulnerable in the first place, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not enough to make AI smarter. We need to make it wiser. AI that understands not just the what, but the why. Why is it being given this information? What's the intent behind it?
So AI that can tell when someone's trying to pull a fast one.
Exactly. AI that can recognize deception, manipulation, even just plain old bad information. And that requires a much deeper understanding of how the world works, how people behave.
That's a tall order. We've covered a lot of ground today. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up? What should they be taking away from all this?
I think the biggest thing is awareness. AI is everywhere these days, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we can't just blindly trust it.
Like any powerful tool, you got to know how to use it safely, right?
Exactly. The more we understand about AI, its potential, but also its limitations, the better off we'll be.
So we don't need to be afraid of AI, but we need to be informed and aware of the risks.
Exactly. And we need to be engaged in shaping how AI develops in the future.
Well said. Sounds like we've got a lot to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of AI security. It's been enlightening, if a little bit unsettling. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.